Hi everyone, this is Michelle here. Today I'm going to be trying a no-line watercolor technique, and I'm using this stamp set from the Alleyway Stamps that's called Party Pooper, and it has this little cat image and a little balloon image that I'm going to use. So I'm using Distress ink here, and the technique that I'm going to be doing is where you stamp a really faint line and watercolor on top of it so that at the end it looks like there's nothing there at all. So right now I just have two different colors of ink, and I'm just testing out which one will make the best line. And you can see I stamped the brown one 3 times here, and I got up to the third time where it was really light. And now I'm also using a yellow one just to see how that'll look. And this one I only stamped twice because by the second time it was already really light. And I decided to go with the brown ink in the end just because I could see it a little bit better, but I still think that it will blend out nicely with the colors I'll be using. So I went ahead and stamped that twice on scrap paper so that the third time it was on my final card. And right now I have a sheet of watercolor paper here that I'm going to be painting on. So I did the same thing to the balloon, and I'm just having it come off of the cat's tail here. And then I can get to the actual watercoloring. So I'm using Zig Clean Color Real Brush Pens here for the watercoloring, but you could use any watercolor or watercolor markers like Distress markers. I just wanted to use these because I like the colors and I like the actual brushes of the markers. So what I did here was I just scribbled some of my colors onto an acrylic block, and I'm picking up the color with a paintbrush. And I find that it's a little easier to control the color if I do this rather than going directly onto the paper from the marker, because this way I can blend colors really easily, and it's also a little less pigmented than if I colored directly onto the paper, which I think is a good thing with this technique because then you get that really soft watercolor look where everything kind of blends together. So now I'm coloring in the cat, and I have to say this is my first time doing this, so I'm not really an expert, but what I found to be most useful is wherever there are lines, you want to make the most contrast between dark and light. So wherever there's a line, on one side of that line, you want to make your color really dark, and then on the other, make it lighter so that it's clear where there's separation. Because in the end, those lines really aren't going to show, so the only way you can show that is through shading. So I just really quickly did that. And oh, another tip is if you're working on one space, maybe work on a space that's a little farther while that space dries so that everything doesn't blend together. So I'm just mixing colors here, browns and blacks, just to get kind of a general natural cat color, but it's nothing too specific, and I really just wanted to experiment with this technique. So that's what I did. And at the end, I also drew in the eyes and the whiskers just to have them more defined. So then I'm coloring in a wash of background here. I just used a flat brush for that, and I went back in with my marker for a little darker color where it needed it. And then for the background, I did the same thing and just did a really faint yellow color just to make sure that there was a little bit of color but not too much, and it's still kind of subtle. And this is pretty easy to do to go around the shapes with a brush really quickly, and it's best to do that with a really wet brush so that everything spreads together really nicely. And I'm also going back and adding the string for my balloon. For the eyes and the whiskers, I actually used my Zig marker watercolor pen, but then I realized it's probably best to use something that won't bleed with water, so that's what I did here. That's just in case I need to go back and add more watercolor, so that's just something to keep in mind. So now I'm going to prep my card base, and I wanted this teal cardstock because it kind of matches with the balloon and it's a contrasting color to the yellow background that I had painted. So I just trimmed that down to 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, and I'm scoring it at the top to make a top folding card base. And I'm just going to make a really simple mat for the watercolor piece that I've created. So I'm going to take that piece and trim down a little bit off of the top and the left side. I don't want to cut too much off of the right side since I stamped fairly close to that edge. And I also wanted to go ahead and add a sentiment. I pulled out this stamp set also from the Alleyway Stamps that's called It's My Party, and there's just a sentiment there that says birthday wishes. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that with my Hero Arts black dye ink. And I'm just stamping that in the top left corner because that's where there's empty space, so I think it'll fit really nicely there. And I just really quickly tape down the top and bottom of my card while I do that because it was a little curled up from all the watercolor that I had on it. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm stamping directly onto a flat surface. Then as a final touch, I wanted to add some little sequins or something like that. So I pulled out these gold star sequins that I have in my collection, and I'm just going to really quickly add that with some liquid adhesive. And again, you can use anything you have here, so enamel dots, regular sequins, wood veneers, just something that will be a little embellishment for this card since the stamping is pretty simple and a lot of the work was done here in the actual watercoloring. So this will give you some dimension, and after I've adhered those, I'm just going to adhere this flat onto my card base. And if you want, you can also add some glitter pen and glossy accents to the balloon just to give it a little bit more shine and dimension, which I've done in a previous card. But I decided not to do that and just finish it as it is. So here are some close-ups of the watercolor. And like I've said before, this is my first attempt, so it's by no means great, but there are definitely other people who are really great with this technique, and I've watched some videos from Christina Werner that are really awesome. She's really good at this. But I just wanted to introduce you to this in case it's something that you've never seen before. So if you really liked it and want to see more, make sure to check out other tutorials. So on screen here I have some other video tutorials that I've done recently. The one in the middle is actually the one that I was mentioning where I used that balloon stamp and I covered them in glitter pen and glossy accents to make them really dimensional and realistic, so you can check that out or any of the other videos here. If you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I really hope to see you again soon.